Hello everyone, how's it going? So today we are at part 3 of our Amonkhet set review. Going to be talking about all of the Amonkhet black cards today. They certainly look a lot better just at first glance than some of the blue cards that I started with. I'm talking about you, Ancient Crab. But now I get to start off with a much more fun card, Archfiend of Ifnir. 3 and 2 black. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control, cycling 2. So the thing about this card, and I'm not positive how I feel on it because I'm not positive how good black cycling is. I can tell you for sure that I love blue-white cycling, but black cycling is a whole nother beast. He does have 2 black in his converted mana cost, so it would be hard to splash him in blue-white cycling, unfortunately. You could probably do it. I don't think it's impossible to do. But it's a card that I'm having trouble evaluating until I see the rest of the black cards in the set. He could be really good, like just cycling things at will and hosing down a Merfolk deck. That sounds pretty fun. Or a vampire deck, similarly. And Merfolk decks don't have too many answers for Archfiend other than Crashing Tide, I guess. Vampires would have to rely on Ixalan's Binding. So if you're against those old matchups from Ixalan, then I think Ifnir could really put down the hoser. The problem is, I feel like those decks are going to sort of fade away and are going to get replaced by Gruul monsters and Scarab God decks and red deck wins. And if you look at it from that hourglass, or not hourglass, that you guys know what I'm saying, that monocle, whatever you want to say. If you look at it from that perspective, I think Archfiend of Ifnir is probably quite slow and clunky and can't get the job done, but it really depends on what people are playing. It might just be a sideboard card that you throw in if you're facing those token decks, you know. Archfiend of Ifnir can really just punish them. And that's kind of what my thought of him was in duels, actually, is that he was kind of clunky, but every now and again I would be playing tokens, or I would be playing against tokens with Ifnir, and suddenly he would feel very validated, because against the right deck he can really hose them down, but it's probably a sideboard card. Baleful Amit, 2 and 1 black. Crocodile Demon, okay, if you want to make your crocodile deck, here's the place to start. Lifelink, when it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature you control. It's okay. I don't think this card is gonna break the meta or anything, but I guess that you could put him in your -1 counters deck, and that's kind of the archetype that I'm gonna be moving into today, is -1 counters, because the first 2 days were covered by blue and white, and obviously cycling is a big component of those colors for Amonkhet. But -1 counters, I don't know. I know there's going to be some good -1 counter cards coming up, but I feel like the mechanic is just not as good of a mechanic as people wanted it to be. Like, I've never seen this deck make the rounds in Standard, so I kind of am dismissive of it a little bit because of that. And that's not to say it's awful, it's just to say that I haven't seen anything go off with -1 counters as much as I would like to. And I know there's going to be some good -1 counter cards probably coming up. Is this one of them? Probably not. Probably not. Blighted Bat, 2 and a black, flying, 2/1. Tap 1, Blighted Bat gains haste until end of turn. I don't think this card is good. We have better flyers, and if you're spending 4 mana to give a 2/1 haste, that just sounds pretty slow and not at all fun. And yeah, I don't think this card's very good. I doubt you can build a -1/-1 counter deck that's strong enough to rival anything currently in the arena meta. Wow, currently. So you're just talking. You're not even talking Amonkhet or. I'm sorry, you're not even talking Ixalan or Rivals of Ixalan. You're talking. Well, no, you actually are talking just those. I'm fumbling with my words. What can I say? But so you don't even think this can beat Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan currently? I don't know, man. I feel like it would be. I feel like Arcfiend would do great, but then again, it's weird because Arcfiend is both cycling and -1 counters, you know. But yeah, Baleful Amit, pretty awful. I think I agree with you. I think as I am seeing this currently, and my opinion could change as we go through the rest of the cards in black. I don't think Baleful Amit is good enough even to beat Merfolk or Vampires currently. Again, that opinion could change if there's some good cards that I see. But okay, Bone Picker, 3 and a black. Bone Picker costs 3 less to cast if a creature died this turn. Flying, Death Touch, 3/2. So back in Rivals of Ixalan set review with Shaolin and I said that both of us wanted to build this mono black deck and go off with it. And obviously that never really happened because you guys haven't seen deck decks from either of us on mono black. And there's a reason for that. I don't think mono black is good enough currently, but I think with Bone Picker we might actually have a pretty solid mono black deck. This might be the card that mono black needed. Because now we get to run 4 Chupacabra, 4 Bone Picker, 4 Direfleet Poisoners, 4 Vraska's Contempts, and we're actually going to have a Planeswalker in the black color type that we can take advantage of as well. And we also have Tetsamok. I think Bone Picker is really good, especially for those other cards that I just mentioned, and I think that there's going to be a very viable deck. I don't know how much play it's going to see because a lot of people are going to be going for, other tier 1 decks, but I wouldn't scoff at that deck that I just named. I think that deck can be very strong and catch a lot of decks off guard. Like a lot of Death Touch in there, a lot of Contempts. I think that's really good. And then say that you do splash that Liliana, you can return your Death Touch creatures back from the graveyard. It sounds really fun, like when I think about it, and I think Bone Picker is going to be a fine inclusion into the meta. I think it's going to do a lot of work, and I'm very excited for it. I was already pretty happy with it in duels, but I think it's going to be even better in arena than it was in duels. So, pretty strong thoughts on Bone Picker. I really think that card is going to be one of the better cards that we get. Bantu the Glorified, 2 and a black, Menace Indestructible. Bantu cannot attack or block unless a creature died under your control this turn. 1 and a black, sacrifice another creature, scry 1, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I think this card's awful. I didn't really care for it that much in duels, and I actually tried to make decks around it, and they were okay. I wouldn't call them tier 1 by any stretch, but I think Bantu's even worse. You doubt Bone Picker will be an MVP? When you say MVP, I agree with you. When you do I think Bone Picker is going to just completely hose down a deck and win the game? No. But I think that it is a much needed inclusion, and that with cards such as Liliana from Amonkhet, being able to return any Death Touch creature you have, because you gotta picture that you're running 4 Direfleet Poisoners, and you're running 4 Bone Pickers, and you're running 4 Chupacabras. That is so much creature hate that I feel like it's gotta be good. And then you also have Tetsamok, and then Liliana can bring any of those back. I don't think any individual card in that deck is necessarily the MVP. I mean, and you could make the argument for Liliana or Tetsamok, but all of them are great filler, so to speak, as you said. They all have a purpose, and they're all meant to get a little bit of value and just hose down your opponent's best creatures. Yeah, I do think Bone Picker is going to be really strong. MVP, probably not your MVP of the deck, but as another card to splash in with Death Touch and flying. That sounds very annoying. I fear the gods control RDW monsters in this upcoming meta. I mean, if you're judging it based off of other tier 1 decks, maybe it's not as good as I think it is. It's hard to argue against what works and what people have used in Standard, and that's why set reviews are a little bit more difficult when you do previous sets. But I still think this is going to be a very viable deck. I don't think, even in some of those matchups, I think you can win them. Like, if you have that much hate and you have 4 Vraska's Contempts, like, as long as you can just go mono with their threats and start to hose them down turn after turn, I think you could have a decent chance. It's probably a lot tougher against the tier 1 decks, but that's not to say that this deck is bad. That just says that, those decks are better. Bantu the Glorified, Menace Indestructible, yeah. As I said, I think this card's pretty awful. We don't really have a good tokens deck unless you want to count vampires, I guess. But I feel like vampires functions a lot differently than Bantu functions. Because the thing with vampires is it's very fast and it tries to beat opponents up pretty quickly. Whereas Bantu is a much slower card. It can't attack or block unless a creature died under your control. So you have to kill something, or get something killed, just for it to attack. And you need 2 mana open just to do that, which is quite taxing on your mana base. And I don't think Bantu really has a good deck currently. I guess you could argue that we're getting Anointed Procession, and that Bantu could go in the Anointed Procession kind of decks, and maybe that would work. But I'm not really too excited for Bantu. I don't think Bantu is one of the gods that are going to go off, so to speak. And before everyone plays Ixalan Jace, Cunning Castaway, and Anointed Procession, hey, that was my most recent Twitter post on my channel feed. I'm very excited for that, actually. Probably not a deck I'm going to play around with much, but for pure jank and enjoyment of the game, maybe. Okay. Cartouche of Ambition, 2 and a black. Enchant creature you control. When a Cartouche of Ambition enters the battlefield, you may put a -1 counter on target creature, and your creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. So when I see this card, I think a lot of an enchantment from white from Rivals of Ixalan, and let's see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. Here we go. Alright, Squire's Devotion. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, except this one gives you another lifelinking vampire. That's a 1/1. So I compare that with Cartouche of Ambition, and I think Cartouche of Ambition sort of outperforms that card because -1 counters are relevant. One thing with a -1 counter you can do is you can just shrink down a body so that it can't trade anymore, right? Like say there's 2 3/3s on the board, and you enchant your guy. Now their 3/3 is just like really bad. It's just a 2/2, and it keeps that -1 counter forever. And I think the value of this card is just really good. Even if you're not killing something, just making something that little bit weaker, just I feel like it would go a long way. And maybe you could splash this in Vampires as like a sideboard card, similar to how people were doing in Standard. Tokens are more relevant, I think. City's Blessing and all. I'm sure that there's going to be some people that try to make Anointed Procession Vampire sort of decks. Do I think they're more relevant? Maybe. We have more token makers coming out of Anointed Procession. But I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to say if they're going to be amazing. Black Cartouche is great against red decks. Kill Kenra, get lifelink. Yeah, that sounds pretty fun, mostly Entropy. I was surprised to see this card coming out of the sideboard in the recent tournament. at Memphis, but I think it has a good reason for it, because like you said, you can kill Kenras, you can nerf creatures down, and in certain matchups, especially where if you're racing with your life totals, if you just slam this down, it'll completely turn the tide of, what's going on, because you're going to be gaining life every turn, and they can't really keep up with that. Cruel Reality, 5 and 2 black, enchant player. It's a curse at the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep. That player sacrifices a creature he or she controls, creature or planeswalker. If the player can't, he or she loses 5 life. So this kind of goes back to Cardboard Nomad's statement. Are tokens more relevant? I don't know if I'm 100% sold on that cardboard, because there are, like Shardot was saying, there's going to be some tier 1 decks like RDW, Scarab God, etc. And if tokens aren't a thing, then Cruel Reality could actually be okay. I kind of imagine Cruel Reality going in my Bone Picker deck, where I also run Direfleet Poisoner, and Chupacabra, and Liliana, and Vraska's Contempt. Maybe Cruel Reality can be a curve topper as well, like as a 1 or 2 of. And then you just win the game after they sack enough things. I could be getting a little janky by throwing this card in, I do realize that. And it depends on the meta. If tokens are a thing, this card's awful. If they're not, this card's great. Maybe this goes in the Mastermind Gateway sideboard? Yes! I love that idea, mostly Entropy. Because it is one of those situational cards that can sometimes just win the game for you, and other times just sort of they sack a 1/1 every turn, and you lose. But I think Entropy has a good point there. I think I would definitely run this as a win con in my sideboard, and then fetch it with Mastermind's Acquisition. That's the kind of thing you want to do, is you fetch this card and win the game. And yeah, I am definitely sold on that idea. I will do that. If I get this card and I have a Mastermind's Acquisition, that deck is going to be made, and this is going to be put in the sideboard. Wonder how quick you can get that out. So are you talking about getting it out on like turn 5 or 6 rather than turn 7? I don't know if it's a ramp card. I mean, you could obviously try to ramp it out, and I wouldn't hate you for it, but even if you get it out on turns 5 or 6, especially if you're on the draw, like say you're facing a deck on the play, and you do get this out on turn 5 or 6, I feel like a lot of decks are still going to be putting out a lot of pressure on you, even if you get it out ahead of schedule. I don't think it's a card that you necessarily want to ramp out as much as it's a card that you stabilize the board and then you fetch this win con with Mastermind's Acquisition. Playing it like even a little ahead of schedule is probably really slow because you're only killing 1 creature per turn, and in that time they've already gotten out a bunch of creatures, and they can just play 1 creature that they want to have die per turn. And assuming that it's a Gruul Monsters deck, that's going to be quite easy, because there's a lot of cards with Eternalize and Gruul Monsters, and they can just bring those back and sacrifice them, and I think they can outrace you. I think my version that would run this deck is probably a control deck that just tries to kill every single creature possible. And I don't necessarily want to play this on turn 7, I just want to take control of the board, and when the time comes where they don't have something that amazing, I'll slam Cruel Reality. Against dinos, this looks very good. It depends. You gotta think that not all dinos are single creatures. For example, Regisaur Alpha spawns a 3/3 that also has haste. So in the time that you're slamming this Cruel Reality, they're gonna already have hasted at least 3 damage on you, and then they only have to sack their 3/3 and they get to keep their Regisaur Alpha. So against Regi, I would disagree, but depending on the dinos, like if they're not the Regisaur Alpha dino, then you're right. You can slow down, like the Forerunner dinos, perhaps you could slow down. Although the Forerunner dinos is sort of a whole nother deck, because for that deck you're trying to get Polyraptor out, and as much as I want to see Cruel Reality do great, it's not going to do great if your opponent has 10 Polyraptors, you know? So it really depends. I think most dinosaurs, you're right, that it will, just hose them down. But there are definitely dinos that can take advantage of Cruel Reality and go up against it quite well. Another deck that's currently shining in the meta is Merfolk, and I think Merfolk is great against this because they just get so many Merfolk out so fast. You need to get a sweeper down. This is a card that needs support. It's not like this card is good on its own. Like, you need to set up your sweepers and your removal spells and eventually get into that board state that I highlighted where they don't really have anything going on, and then you cast this, and then that's when it starts to shine. It's not a card that just shines on its own. Top end of Orzhov, Slaughter, Profane too. Yeah, I could see that cardboard. I could definitely see that. Merfolk laughs at the 6-drop, do nothing. Yeah, I think Merfolk will have an easier time with this card, but yeah, it probably does need to get played in either Orzhov or Dimir or Rakdos, some kind of control deck that tries to kill every creature and eventually slams this as their as like a win con of sorts. Okay, Cursed Minotaur, 2 and a black, 3/2 menace. I'm not really going to talk about this one. I'm sorry if you guys came for the sole purpose of hearing my take on Cursed Minotaur. If that is why you came, I will just say that I don't like the card. I'm sorry to disappoint. I know it's a highly controversial card. Okay, Dispossess, 2 and a black. Choose an artifact card name, search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the chosen name, and exile them. Then that player shuffles his or her library. Wow. It's kind of funny looking at this card because, as we know, Mardu Vehicles was dominating Standard at this point in time, and I think this card was put into Amonkhet with the intention of hosing Standard. Hosing the Mardu Vehicles decks down. I think that's why this card even exists. So, assuming Mardu Vehicles is a format thing that's amazing, and I know that we don't get Mardu Vehicles, that's Kaladesh, but in that meta, I could see this card being good. But in this current meta, I think it's pretty bad. There's not many artifacts that people just run 4 of that just put beatdowns on opponents. Immortal Sun is an artifact, but you would only be able to get maybe 1 or 2 Immortal Suns, because most people who run Immortal Sun, it's just like a 1 of. GPG sideboard, I guess. That's a good point. I'm just wondering, there's a card, oh no, never mind. There's a card called Forgotten Legacy or something. It had a picture of Pian Karan on it, where it sort of does a similar thing, but that's a card from Kaladesh or something, so I just want to scratch that thought. And I guess Dispossess, yeah, that's really all it would be good for, and that's assuming that God Pharaoh's Gift is even a thing. Good against Approach and combo decks. The thing with Approach, Lost Legacy, yeah, Shaolin's got it. Shaolin was one of the ones who brought my attention to this card. I did see it get played in Memphis as well. But yeah, sadly that's only artifacts. So Dispossess, again, for any of you coming in a little late, just saw Shaolin pop in. I think this Dispossess was built for the Mardu Vehicles decks because they were just running rampant at this point in time, and it's sort of lost value ever since then. And I don't even know if I'd run it against GPG, depending on how prevalent that is. Like, if GPG is a deck that we start seeing a lot of, then obviously Dispossess is great, but I kind of have a feeling that GPG is not going to get played that much, because it does lose some cards that, unfortunately, are in Kaladesh. Okay, Doomed Dissenter. When it dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So I guess this goes in the minus counters cards, such as Baleful Amit, which puts a -1 counter on target creature you control. Um, I am a little cynical of this card because I have played around with this sort of stuff and against this sort of stuff in duels where this stuff just doesn't work. It feels very underwhelming, and I generally just beat it or I get crushed if I'm trying to play it. Again, I know this is not duels, this is arena, and we're going to have access to all the cards. We'll be able to play with whatever we want. But even so, I don't think it's that good. Unless I start seeing some minus counter cards that just blow me away, I just feel like -1 counters. My take right now is that it's going to be kind of garbage. But again, I'm very early in my set review of Black. But the sweet, sweet value. Sweet, sweet value. Sorry, I got it. I had to do my Nate impression. But no, I think Doom Dissenter's garbage, unfortunately. Maybe we'll see some minus counter cards later through Black, but right now my verdict is not good. Dread Wanderer. Dread Wanderer enters the battlefield tapped. 2 and a black, return Dread Wanderer from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery and if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. This card's okay. It's kind of like I want Scrap Heap Scrounger, but Dread Wanderer will do, I guess. You know? Like, you really want the Scrap Heap Scrounger back, but if we have to work with Dread Wanderer, whatever, we'll work with Dread Wanderer instead. I definitely think it's better than that Vampire that you may return if you gained life this turn from Rivals of Ixalan. That comes in tapped as well. But, I don't know, man. You need to have an empty hand, and that's one of the big problems with Dread Wanderer that I've had, is a lot of the times when I've played it in duels, I just don't have that empty hand, and I sort of only am able to get it back when I have nothing, you know? Because when you're empty-handed, you basically have nothing, unless your board state is amazing. And I've had a lot of games where I'm just returning this every turn, but it doesn't matter, because they have 3 Planeswalkers on board, and they're drawing extra cards, and they have removal for days, and even though you're getting value with Dread Wanderer, it just doesn't matter. Dread Wanderer is okay. Worst case scenario, it's a 2/1 for 1. Are there good draw discard spells for the Hollow One deck? I don't even know what Hollow One is, mostly Entropy. You would have to show me that card for me to even answer that question. Yeah, Black aggro isn't going to have vehicles or push. I was talking earlier about Mono Black, for any of you that weren't here when I started the stream, and I want to play around. So I just want to preface this. Shaolin and I both we were both talking about Mono Black before Rivals of Ixalan came out, and I think both of us wanted to do it, but it never quite worked out. I think that with Bone Picker and Liliana in the format, that deck might actually be pretty viable. And I'm wondering if Dread Wanderer would go in that deck, because then you do get at least that 1 recursion creature, which is pretty cool. And you have your 4 Vraska's Contempts, you have your 4 Direfleet Poisoners, you have your 4 Chupacabras, and you have your Lilianas as well that can bring creatures back, because we are getting Liliana from Amonkhet, don't forget that. And I'll talk about her later. But I do think that Mono Black deck is a lot better than the ones that Shaolin and I were hoping to build after Rivals of Ixalan came out. We also have access to Tetsamok, who could go in that deck. I think there's actually a lot of fun things you can do with Mono Black post Amonkhet. And maybe Dread Wanderer does actually make it. You do need to have an empty hand, which, yeah, that is more mid-range. I'm not talking about aggro. I'm sorry if I sounded like I was, but when you said black aggro, it just made me think of black mid-range. But you're right, it's not the same thing. But yeah, black mid-range, as this would be, is I think it's gonna have a fun spot for sure. Dune Beetle, 1 in a black, 1/4. I actually think this card's pretty good draft, but obviously in, a full collection, it's garbage. But if I pull this in draft, say we're doing a draft with a bunch of friends, and I pull this, I'm probably going to put it in my deck. But anyway, not going to talk about that card too much, because otherwise it's pretty meh. Faith of the Devoted. 2 and a black. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Man, this card would have been great in 2xG. Imagine. Imagine if we had 2xG in duels and this card was in the format. I would totally be playing around with it. I don't care how janky it is. But as far as standard is concerned, as far as arena is concerned, first of all, it doesn't go in blue-white cycling unless you splash for black. Second of all, I don't think it's a very good card, because you're having to pay 1, and you're not impacting the board at all, you're just impacting life totals. This card is a New Perspective finisher. I don't know what New Perspective is. You guys keep naming these cards that I haven't seen. Hollow One is a artifact creature that costs 2 less for a... Okay, I guess I might get to that card in the artifact section, eh? Alright, what's a New Perspective, though? Is that a card, or what? New Perspective MTG. Oh, yes, I remember it, yeah. Hey, don't hate me because I forgot a card, okay? I remember what the card does, I just forgot the name of it. Yeah, it's tough for me because I haven't played around, like, especially if the card was never in duels. I'm going to forget names simply because I've never played with them before or really seen them much outside of duels. But yeah, New Perspective finisher. Yeah, that sounds a bit Janktown. I just can't see myself running both of those because it's just a bunch of different enchantments and stuff, and it just sounds really awkward. Too much setup, you know? You don't want to set up with a ton of different cards. I like to just have like 1 or 2 setup cards and then work with that. This would be another one that you would add, and it would sort of take away synergy from everything else, all of your actual cycling cards. So I don't think that's a thing, unfortunately. Festering Mummy. It's quite real? Really? Yeah, I don't know, man. It sounds kind of crazy. I mean, maybe there's some guy in Standard, like Sam Black, who can just disprove me instantly. You can find any card you want in a New Perspective deck. So you just cycle your whole deck and then make them in like 10 turns or so and just make them lose a ton of life. It's interesting. I wouldn't say I would like it. I think I'd still rather have Drakehaven, if I'm being frank. And the thing with Drakehaven is that Drakehaven has access to a card that exiles enchantments that we talked about on day 1. Drakehaven has access to Forsake the Worldly, which if you didn't see, because I scrolled through that pretty quickly, would deal with this combo pretty quickly. Yeah, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't know, man. It sounds like you're really trying to set something up. It sounds like a combo deck, right? Like you set up your Faith of the Devoted and you set up your New Perspective, and then you just cycle everything. And in the meantime, you're trying to sweep their board to kill everything. I'm not really sold. Like, it sounds like it still requires a lot of setup, and I don't think that deck is going to be to be doing that well unless you're just trying to have fun, in which case I think you'll have fun with it, that's for sure. But as far as competitiveness, no, I'm not sold. Okay. Festering Mummy, 1 black. When it dies, you may put a minus counter on target creature. I guess if you can make like a recursion deck. Do we have a recursion deck? Not too many. I can't think of that much recursion. Like, I guess you could get it back with Liliana, but is this really the card you want to get back with Liliana so that you can just start putting minus counters on things? I think it's too slow. look a strictly worse Vraska's Contempt. It feels pretty bad, that's for sure. And yeah, I don't really want to talk about this one anymore. It's just maybe in duels you could build with it, but new challenge, beat Ninja with a new perspective combo. I'm sorry, man. It's just I guess we all have our opinions, and my opinion's pretty low of Faith of the Devoted. Final reward: 4 and a black, exile target creature. Oh, that is the strictly worse Vraska's Contempt. I wasn't looking at final reward. Well, maybe Shardat, we're in a board state where you don't have 2 black open, and final reward kills the only blocking creature they have, and that's what wins you the game. But no, obviously I'm being sarcastic. You never run this over Vraska's Contempt. It's probably not a bad draft card, but if we're comparing Vraska's Contempt in this, like, Vraska's Contempt is Babe Ruth, and this is some, like, kindergartner who just made the team. Maybe they have Tainted Remedy and Vraska's Contempt would kill me. Yeah, see? That's what you need to think about. Oh, Gravedigger, that's kind of cool. I never realized we had like a cool art for this card, because maybe I'm mistaken. I believe we had Gravedigger in duels, but it had like some art that was from Magic Origins. It's kind of cool to see the new Amonkhet version of this. Kind of flavorful too. You can see the zombie just dragging a corpse out of the sand dunes. Gravedigger. It's really flavorful. I like it. We had Gravedigger in duels, yes. Yeah. And as we know, 3 and a black, it enters target creature. When it enters the battlefield, may return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. 2/2. Not a great card on its own, and it's probably bad in Arena as well because it's kind of slow, and I'm not quite sold on zombies being a thing when we don't have access to Shadows over Innistrad or Eldritch Moon. That being said, I love the flavor. This is probably one of my favorite flavor cards of the set thus far. Grim Strider, here's a funny one. Yeah, with the old Tempest art. I really didn't care for the Tempest art. In fact, I'm actually surprised. Like, wouldn't it have been cool if they had replaced the art just for flavor win? Like, we had a really dumb looking art for the Gravedigger that we got, whereas this one, it actually looks pretty sweet. Grim Strider, 3 and a black. Grim Strider gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. I've played around with this card in duels, and it's pretty janky, and it's not at all competitive, but it can be quite fun. Like, the deck that I had in mind, it ran 4 Grim Strider, or I'm sorry, 3 because of rarity restrictions. It ran Hazoret. It ran that wolf from Shadows over Innistrad, where it can't attack unless you have 0 cards in hand. Wolf Construct or something. It looks like a wolf robot. And yeah, the deck's really janky. I believe it also ran a Minotaur that made you discard a card. I don't think this is competitive. We're definitely in Janktown when I try to review this card. And yeah, even then, I think it's bad. Like, even in Janktown, it's bad in Janktown, which is saying a lot. Because you can just use a removal spell on it, you know? And you have to be empty-handed, which means you're not going to be following up with anything. Let's say you had 3 cards in hand. You would have a 4-mana 3/3. Let's say you had 2 cards in hand. You had a 4-mana 4/4. That sounds pretty bad. Even for a 4/4, you know? Like, it's just awful. I don't even think I run this in my jank decks. Like, I just can't see it. I feel like it just dies pretty easily to a removal spell, and the thing, it's just not a good synergy. What can I say? Would it go in that deck with, man, I don't even remember the name of it. It ran this card that would create beetles. It would create a ton of beetles. Nest of Scarabs. Would it go in that deck? No, it wouldn't work, would it? Because this is when you put minus counters on a creature. Never mind. I tried to validate this card one last time, and it wouldn't even have it. So, Grimstrider, 0 out of 10. Got to go take care of dinner. Back in a while. All right, man. Take care. Shout out. Okay. Heart of the Broken Lands. 4 and a black. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, Heart of the Broken Lands gets +2/+1 until end of turn. Kind of just another vanilla body that has an effect. It is kind of fun, like if you can get them out and get a 6/5 attacking, but for 5 mana, whew, that is expensive. And I don't know, man. Are you gonna run 4 Ifnirs and 4 Horror of the Broken Lands? Is that the deck that we're supposed to be brewing towards? Probably not. I think this card's just not gonna do much good, sadly, because we're gonna have we're gonna have much faster decks that can beat this down quite handedly, and Horror of the Broken Lands will be a broken card in a bad way. Lay Bare the Heart. 1 in a black. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-legendary, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Wow. Now this sounds fun. You know what's interesting is that, okay, I could be wrong because of the rule changes, but if someone reveals Liliana Death's Majesty after I cast that card, would I be able to tell them to discard it? Or because of the legend rule, is Liliana actually a legendary planeswalker, but it just doesn't say that she is, you know? Because I know that's something that sort of came up recently. And if all planeswalkers are legendary now, then I think that Lay Bare the Heart is a little... Lay Bare the Heart, I'm sorry. I think that Lay Bare the Heart is a little bit worse than I want it to be. Still, it's better than... Is it better than Duress? It's kind of situational. Planeswalkers are legendary now. Yeah, I kind of figured. So that does make Lay Bare the Heart a little bit worse. At the same time, you can choose creatures. Yeah, that card got nerfed, and I would say that card got nerfed pretty hard. Because who doesn't want to choose Liliana Death's Majesty when you play Lay Bare the Heart, you know? Who doesn't want to choose Scarab God? Yeah, I think I run Duress over this, and I know it's situational. I know Lay Bare the Heart. There's times where it'll be better than Duress, but for just generally speaking, I think I'm going to be running Duress instead. Because Duress can actually, right? Duress can hit Planeswalkers. I don't run the card, so I just need to look it up real quick. Let's see. Non-creature, non-land. So yeah, you could hit Planeswalkers, instant sorceries, enchantments, or artifacts. Pretty relevant, right? Whereas Lay Bare the Heart can hit creatures, but if the creature is legendary, such as Scarab God, then it's gonna be kind of miserable. And it's also twice as expensive. You're having to take turn 2 off to play Lay Bare the Heart instead of turn 1. That makes it a lot worse in my eyes. And yeah, I think the rest is it just plays better. Liliana Death's Majesty. 3 and 2 black. Put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield and mill the top 2 cards of your deck. -3, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a black zombie in addition to its other colors. -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures. I think Liliana is going to be a fun card in Arena once it comes out. And the reason for that is because the mono black deck that I have in mind runs 4 Chupacabras. And let me tell you, it's not going to feel... Like, there's not many things that feel better than getting a Chupacabra back and killing something with Liliana's -3. That sounds quite fun. And I think it's going to be strong. Additionally, you can mill your Chupacabras and get them back. Say you don't have a Chupacabra on the battlefield, you can still get it into your graveyard through her +1. You'll get a 2/2 zombie as well. I have high hopes for Liliana Death's Majesty. She might not be able to compete with the tier 1 decks, I understand that. But as a mono black deck, I think mono black is going to be pretty fun. with Chupacabras and Contempts and Direfleet Poisoners and Bone Pickers. I think Liliana Death's Majesty is probably, it might even be my favorite, no, not my favorite Planeswalker. That's still Vraska, but it might be my second favorite Planeswalker. It might be in my top 3. That's saying something, right? Yeah, I just have high hopes for her. It kind of sucks that her -7 destroys all non-zombie creatures, because most of the creatures in my deck are not going to be zombies. But it's still an ultimate. It can still hose down a board if they have it. But you're mostly going to be playing her for her +1 and -3. These are the two more important abilities, and I just think she's going to be really good. Like, this deck has so much card hate. You get Tetsamok, you get Vraska's Contempt, Direfleet Poisoner can kill anything without indestructible or flying. It can even kill flyers if they block. No, you'd have to have a pirate attacking, I'm sorry. Plus it doesn't kill Scarab God tokens. Feels bad, man. Scarab God tokens. What are you talking about, Eugenides? Scarab God tokens don't have indestructible, so... Oh yeah, because those are zombies. Okay, you're talking about her ultimate. I see what you're saying now. But that's why you run the 4 Vraska's Contempts. You run the 4 Vraska's Contempts so that if they do Scarab God you have a way to deal with him, you know? And Scarab God's a good card. I realize that that he's going to be quite a annoying card to deal with, but I still think that Mono Black is quite strong. And it might be top tier 2, if not bottom tier 1. Just because of Liliana's Death's Majesty and all of the card hate that you can use. I'm very much an advocate of Mono Black right now because of some of the cards that we're getting. Okay, Liliana's Mastery, 3 and 2 black. Zombies you control get +1/+1. Liliana's Mastery enters the battlefield. Create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. If zombies was a thing, this would be great, but because we don't have access to, as I said earlier, Shadows over Innistrad or Eldritch Moon, I think zombies are going to be kind of weak. And even with Liliana's Mastery and Lord of the Cursed, I think that we're just losing so many cards from those 2 sets that it does make these decks a lot weaker, unfortunately. And I want to like it, but when you think about the other decks in the format and how they're going to be, aggroing you out, I just can't really get behind a tribal theme that is desperately wanting 2 different sets in the game for it to really thrive. Because these zombies, they're a lot weaker. They're a lot weaker without those 2 sets, and I just don't know if they can pull their weight. I know that Liliana's Mastery is a great card. I will defend this card in the proper zombie deck, but I don't know if we can build a proper zombie deck. They can gain Radiant Destiny and anything else. That's a good point, Cardboard. You could run your 4 Liliana's Mastery, maybe like 2 Radiant Destiny, 4 Lord of the Accursed. You might be able to brew something with that. I don't think it's going to be tier 1, but I think it's going to be strong. I just don't think that, yeah, I kind of agree with Shardat. Zombie versus Merfolk. I think the Merfolk deck would win that matchup. Yeah, it just needs a lot of help right now, and because we don't have those 2 sets, it's going to be a lot weaker. Miasmic Mummy. When it enters the battlefield, each player discards a card. Kind of just a very vanilla feeling card. Not really too much more for me to say about this. Apparently it has really bad breath. I can say that. Like, look at the breath of this thing. Just, I bet that smells really bad. Imagine getting a whiff of that thing. Whew, it's like pizza breath, man. Alright. Nest of Scarabs, 2 and a black. Enchantment, whenever 1 or more -1 counters are put on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect tokens. I've lost to this card in duels, and I still think it's bad. I I don't think minus counters is a strong set, and even if you're able to make Nest of Scarabs go off, I still don't think it. Even if you make a bunch of 1/1s, like, I feel like there's ways to deal with that, you know? And, yeah, I'm very much not a fan of minus counters right now, in case you couldn't tell. I don't think they're going to be game-defining. I think it's one of the weaker things to come out of Amonkhet. And yeah, as a result, Nest of Scarabs just isn't going to be that good. I'm sure there might be some niche board states where it does great, but generally speaking, Nest of Scarabs, not a big fan of it. Painful Lessons, 2 and a black. Sorcery, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. It's interesting. I don't hate this card. It kind of makes me sad, though, because Read the Bones I would rather have, you know? I'd rather just play Read the Bones instead of this, because you get to scry first. I don't think it's awful, though. I could definitely see this being splashed in, like, a control deck. The question is, are the card draw spells that we have in those control decks better than Painful Lesson, or are they worse? I feel like we have better card draw spells if we're talking blue. If we're talking black, this might be what you're going for card draw, but if we're talking blue, there's definitely better card draw out there. I don't know. I'm kind of just... I think the card's average. I wouldn't call it bad, but it's definitely not like something I'd want to run in my most competitive decks. I feel like it does feel a little bit awkward running this. So, yeah. Pitiless Vizier, just a 4/2. Minotaur Cleric, that's a very strange creature type. Normally you take Minotaurs for very aggressive things. Oh! It actually does do something. I thought this was just flavor text, to be honest. I thought this was just a big paragraph of flavor text. It actually has something. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, it gains Indestructible. Cool. I still think it's garbage. And I don't really have too much more to say about it. I know Indestructible is a cool mechanic and all, but we already have access to Moment of Craving, and you have to cycle just for it to have Indestructible. Excuse me. And I don't think it's that good. Plague Belcher, 2 and a black. Zombie Beast, Menace. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 -1 counters on target creature you control. Whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. And it is a 5/4. Plague Belcher, again, this kind of goes back to zombies. I don't think they're that strong right now, and I already highlighted earlier that I don't think -1 counters are very strong either. And as a result of those conclusions that I've come to, I don't think Plague Belcher is going to be anything that I really care that much about, you know? I'm not going to ever spend a wild card on this, I'm sorry. But, yeah, it's just not really that competitive looking to me. And I'm not going to use it. Ruthless Sniper, 1 black. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a -1 counter on target creature. This card did see a lot of play in duels once Amonkhet first came out. I remember Ruthless Snipers were everywhere right after Amonkhet hit duels. That being said, I don't think it's a good card. You need to really go for a cycling black deck. And cycling is generally used for blue and white, so you do lose a lot of cards in black. And I think it's slow, especially in the arena meta. We're going to have aggro decks, and paying 1 to put -1 counters on creatures is cute. I wouldn't call it great, though. They're going to be playing more and more creatures. While I'm trying to put -1 counters on creatures, they're going to be playing Glory Bringers and Rekindling Phoenixes. And if Rekindling Phoenix dies, you just get an 0/1 that would bring it back. They're gonna even like Regisaur Alpha is good against this card. If we're talking about dinosaurs, welcome back, Sharda. Just talking about how much I hate Ruthless Sniper. Even if even against dinosaurs and Merfolk, I think this card is slow. Like, it takes a long time before you can really start using those -1 counters to impact the board. And in the meantime, I think most aggro decks will be able to just run it over. Scarab Feast, 1 black, cycling 1, exile up to 3 target cards from a single graveyard. This might be okay sideboard for like a Scarab God deck or something. I could kind of see that. The question is, would we rather run, and forgive me, I am forgetting the name of the card, but the lands that exiles are all cards from graveyards. Would you rather run that, or would you rather run Scarab Feast? I think I'd rather run the land, but I'm not going to dismiss this card totally. I think maybe as a sideboard card, there are some matchups where you can really mess someone up. Like, picture the Journey to Eternity deck. This is where this card would shine. Like, they flip their thing, and then they try to get something back, and then you just exile 3 creatures. Ooh, man, that is just hosing that deck down. I love it. Yeah, I don't think Scarab Feast is awful. Although I don't think it's amazing either. It's just sort of sideboard-esque. Shadows of the Grave. That is a badass art, by the way. This little guy over here, and his shadow goes to like 30 feet, or meters if you guys use meters. I don't know the meter to feet conversion, I'm sorry. Instant. Return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that you cycled or discarded this turn. Oh, Shaolin. Okay. Shaolin, his combo is starting to become more clear. Now he wants to play New Perspectives and Faith of the Devoted and his Shadow of the Grave. I see it now, Shaolin. I still think it's jank. I still think it's jank. I really hope I don't have to eat my words, but I don't know, man. I'm just not sold on this deck. It's a fun combo deck. You can do it. You can run this combo, and I'm sure you'll win a certain amount of games with it. But it's not something that I'm going to be brewing towards. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. It does kind of suck that it has to be this turn. Imagine if it was just all of your cycling cards, but that would be a little OP, so I can understand why it doesn't read that way. Soul Stinger, ETB, minus counters, 2 minus counters on target creature you control. Vizier of Tumbling Sands, creature, untap another permanent. When you cycle Vizier of oh, so you set up a bunch of mana with Shadow of the Grave and go for some combo kill, I guess. Okay, I can see that combo. It's interesting. I still am not a fan of it. Unless it's like consistently beating top tier decks, which obviously it's not. It's probably a fun deck to run. I'm not gonna say it's awful, but at the same time, I don't think I'm gonna be running it. Like I said, it's interesting though. That is an interesting little thing. You have to run blue, so it's blue-black cycling. Okay. Soul Stinger, put 2 -1 counters on target creature you control. When he dies, you may put a -1 counter on target creature for each -1 counter on Soul Stinger, and it's 3 and a black. Probably okay in draft, but other than that, kind of garbage. Splendid Agony, 2 and a black. Distribute 2 -1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. The thing with this card is I don't like it because we have a card called Soulscar Mage, which can kind of replicate this effect, but far better. You turn 1 Soulscar Mage, turn 2 a Braid, and you've basically done kind of what this card wants to do. And that's why I think this card is really bad. Even if Soulscar Mage wasn't a thing, you're paying 3 mana to nerf something, and I don't know if it's that good. Stir the Sands, 4 and 2 black. Create 3 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, cycling 4. Whenever you cycle Stir the Sands, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. I've actually been a fan of this card, and I know it looks really janky, and it's probably bad, But there's a card that can take advantage of it quite well, and it is Binding Mummy. So whenever you cycle that Stir of the Sands card, you can just tap down a zombie at instant speed, and it can really get you ahead in a race. And that's a combo that I like to use. I don't think it's going to be as good in Arena because we just don't have access to, as I said, we don't have, the zombies from previous sets. So it's going to make this deck a lot weaker. But that being said, it's a fun combo. I don't think zombies are going to be awful. Like, you can definitely get wins with zombie decks, but it's just we're lacking a lot of cards that will make it less fun. Angry Beard dropping Liliana. I am so excited for Liliana, Angry Beard. I don't know if you caught the earlier portion of this stream, but I have high hopes for her in this upcoming release, and I think she's going to be able to do a lot of work. And I did talk about her already, so I'm not going to talk about her again, but yeah, I think she's going to be quite strong. Supernatural Stamina. 1 black, instant until end of turn. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Ooh. I actually kind of like this card. Picture 4 Chupacabras and 4 Supernatural Staminas. Now, doesn't that sound fun? You get to trade with something. Like, I really think Mono Black is going to be strong. And I think Supernatural Stamina is a big part of that. Like, you get your Chupacabras back and kill another thing. Supernatural Stamina cardboard's on board with it. There you go. See? I'm not alone in my Mono Black deck. I think it's going to be quite fun. Yushinida's dropping the journeys in, as I'm sure he always does. I know you're going to make that Supernatural Stamina journey deck. Get extra Phoenix tokens. I don't think that would work because, yeah, it wouldn't work. It would not work because the 01 is not a physical card, so the physical card wouldn't come back. It's the same thing as when you bounce a token and they don't get the token into their hand. Yeah, that would not work. But that being said, I still think Supernatural Stamina is great. I'm very excited to use this on Chupacabra, as I said, and Direfleet Poisoner. Don't forget, you can also enchant Direfleet Poisoner and get that card back. Like, just anything, really. It kind of sucks that we don't have Fatal Push, because that makes the deck a little bit, I would say a decent amount weaker. Because I remember in Standard, for a short while, I don't know if the deck is still prevalent now, but there was a mono black deck that ran 4 Staminas and 4 Fatal Push, and then just a lot of black creatures. Bone Picker, I believe, was one of them. No, it makes a token, then gives you the Phoenix back. So if it gets killed again, you have an extra. Target creature, I don't know if that would work. Because it's a token. I mean, you could be right, but I'm a little skeptical when I hear that. Getting a token back. Because generally tokens, when they die, like, it doesn't quite work. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped. Maybe it would. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but I'm a little skeptical about that. That's all I'll say. Because generally tokens don't ever come back for any reason if they're dealt with, even with weird effects like this. Oh, are you saying Phoenix makes the token and then another token? I'm kind of confused. If you have token in your yard before it dies, playing Stamina will get you both? So you use this on the Phoenix dies, and then you get the Phoenix back and the token. I see what you're saying. Okay. I thought you meant using this on the token itself or something. I was a little confused by that. No, that makes more sense now. If you have the Phoenix and the Phoenix dies, you get the token. Okay. No, that works. But yeah, as I said earlier, I think Supernatural Stamina is going to be great in these black decks. Trespasser's Curse, 1 and a black. This is a lot of words to get an 01, but hey, value. Yeah, you do get value. I guess it's a chumper, right? You can chump with it. But hey, it's great. All right. Trespasser's Curse. Enchant player. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under enchanted player's control, that player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Token sideboard, maybe. I don't think I'm gonna run this card ever, but I don't know. Maybe tokens become an awesome deck and we start having to main deck these. This hypothetical situation I'm describing is probably not going to happen, though, and I don't think Trespasser's Curse is really going to see much play because of that. Trial of Ambition. Now, here's a fun card. 1 and a black. Ooh. By the way, we do have CGB facing off Sharda in Arena currently. So, place your bets. Who do you guys think is going to win? Is anyone rooting for Sharda? Is anyone rooting for CGB? I want to know. I don't know what they're running. I don't know, man. I don't want to take sides. I don't want to make someone feel left out. Shard's going down. CGB is green-black, and Sharda is Merfolk. Sharda, you got Merfolk, dude. Merfolk are so fast. If CGB misses like a land drop, or he doesn't get his Golden Demise or something, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Come on. Hang in there, Shard. Alright, Trial of Ambition. Rooting against Merfolk, obviously. Yeah, I kind of don't like Merfolk. They're kind of mean. CGB is not missing lands. Oh, man. I'm sorry, Shard. I'm sorry if this is not going your way. Does not sound like it is. I guess we got CGB as the preferred one to win here. He scooped. I'm sorry, Shard. I was trying to root for you. I was trying to get people to support the Merfolk player in hopes that he might, hit his land drops and whatnot. But nah, it didn't look like it was going your way. Sorry, just too tired to play out a real match. It's only like 7 p.m. Are you tired? Didn't get much sleep? I hear you, man. I hear you. I didn't get much sleep yesterday, but I'm quite awake right now. Trial of Ambition. 1 and a black. When Trial of Ambition enters the battlefield, target opponent sacrifices a creature. When Cartouche enters the battlefield under your control, return Trial of Ambition to its owner's hand. I think this card's decent. It's like a cheaper Liliana's Oath of Liliana. And I think that I know that Sam Black was running a deck with cartouches and stuff, or maybe it was just trials. I can't remember. I still need to look at Sam Black's deck a little bit more thoroughly. I did skim it, but I would not say that I really dove into the intricacies of it as much as I would like to. That being said, I think Trial of Ambition is a pretty good card. You have a 2-mana removal spell. Do you play this over Moment of Craving or, other 2-mana removal spells? You might. Like, what if you just throw your Trial of Ambition in instead of Moment of Craving? It might not be awful. The problem is cartouches can be kind of janky. And I think you need to have the right deck for this. I think you need to have a lot of recursion type creatures where you won't feel bad about getting 2-for-1 as much. Like that zombie that comes back when you have 1 card in hand, Dread Wanderer. Maybe that can work with Trial of Ambition. And then you can also run. Where is the cartouche itself? Is it just Cartouche of Ambition? Yeah, Cartouche of Ambition and Trial of Ambition. Fair enough. Okay. So you could run those cards. And maybe there are actually decks that are viable where you can recur Trial of Ambition if you have those value type creatures that just come back from the graveyard over and over again. Let's see, I was pretty stacked. You were going to get Chupa Chupa Tyrant. Jeez, CGB, this sounds so brutal. Not just 1 Chupa, but 2. Let me just kill your 2 best creatures 2 turns in a row and follow up with a Tyrant. Yeah, that sounds rough. As I said, too tired for a match where I have to think. I get it. I like it. And of course, the next match is against White-Red Control. That deck has been brutal for me. I've been facing a lot of white-red control where they run, man, what is the name of that artifact that untaps creatures and removes them from combat? There's that, and then they also run Settle, and then they also run Star of Extinction. Thematic Compass, that's what it is. It's Thematic Compass. 4 Thematic Compass, 4 Settle, a couple stars in there. You gotta have your Sanguine Sacrament. It's just an awful deck, and I hate that deck. It's like so annoying to play against. I sent Contempt to the graveyard. All I wanted was the lands to get there, which I drew. Okay. Anyway, Unburden. 3 black, target player discards 2 cards, and it has cycling. When I see this card, there's a card from Ixalan that I compare it to. And it might be Rivals of Ixalan. I cannot remember, but I think it's Ixalan. Let's see. Heartless Pillage. This might be it. I think there's actually a few cards that do this effect. I think there's one in Vampires that makes them lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. And then there's also Heartless Pillage. So, would you rather get a treasure, or would you rather have the benefit of cycling? That's hard to evaluate. Arterial Flow. Yep, I believe that's the Vampire one, if I'm not mistaken. Cardboard Nomad. I didn't realize there were so many cards that did this. I guess Arterial Flow would be in Rivals, wouldn't it? So let's just go to Rivals real quick and pull that one up as well. Just there we go. First one, Arterial Flow. If you control a vampire, So obviously this card is situational, and it depends on the deck. But say you were running Vampire, would you rather run Heartless Pillage in Vampire, or Unburden in Vampires? I kind of like Unburden personally, because Unburden gives you actual card draw if you're not using it. But I haven't really played around with any of the 3, and I don't think any of them are top tier, so to speak. I think they're just sort of okay cards. So I'm probably not going to play around with any of them much, but I don't know. If I had to pick between those 3, I kind of like the one with cycling, just because if it's not good, you can at least get another card. I do also like the treasure one, though. The Heartless Pillage, because ramp is relevant. Wander in Death. 2 and a black, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Cycling 2. Okay, this card also competes with another card from Rivals of Ixalan, and I'll see if I can find it real quick for you guys. Recover. Return target creature you control to your graveyard, from your graveyard to your hand, draw a card. Whereas this one returns 2 creatures, and you can cycle it, but you do not draw a card. 2 creatures is pretty good. I know in March of the Drowned, when I run that, getting 2 pirates back feels godlike. But the thing is, I am doing that for 1 mana. I'm not doing that for 3 mana, so that may factor in to why I like March of the Drowned so much. I might not like it as much if I'm tapping 3 mana to replicate that effect. The fact that it has cycling seems decent. We are going to be having cards like Scarab God that do this without needing to even run Wander in Death. So if you take top tier decks into account, I think Wander in Death probably isn't that good, because Scarab God is just going to choose any graveyard and just return it under your control. Not even to your hand, just to the battlefield. So Wanderer Death, if you look at it from that perspective, not that good. But say we don't have top tier decks. Say we're running Jank, which is gonna be the case, if I had to guess. Wanderer in Death, I think it's not bad. Cycling, returning 2 creatures. Sounds pretty fun for those grindy decks with Chupacabras. Imagine returning 2 Chupacabras to your hand. Oh man. Or a Chupacabra and something else. Not top tier, but 2 Chupas. Sweet. Yeah. It's funny that you say that right as I'm talking about it. Unless you said that because I was talking about it. I don't know how much delay there is, but I'd like to think it's the former of the 2. Wasteland, Scorpion, 2 and a black, Death Touch, cycling. I mean, I've always wanted to build a deck with nothing but Death Touch creatures, but that deck would probably not be as good as you'd think it would be. But maybe it'll go in my all Death Touch deck, you know? Nothing super competitive, but more of a troll deck that has a synergy being a keyword, being Death Touch. Same wavelength. That's awesome, Cardboard. Alright. Cardboard and I are interconnected with our brains. It's pretty sweet. We communicate telepathically. Never. 1 and 2 black. Sorcery. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Aftermath. I gotta tilt my head with all these Aftermath cards. Exile target card from a graveyard. Create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Death Touch Trample deck sounds super fun. See? Eugenides is buying into my jank. I'm telling you, man. I'm gonna make a Death Touch deck one day, and it's gonna have only Death Touch creatures. And it's gonna be really fun. But, competitive? No. Fun? Yes. Okay. Anyway, back to Never. First of all, the first half of it, I would rather have Vraska's Contempt in place of it. I think at instant speed, it's just a lot better. Then again, we are not facing Smuggler's Copter. We are not facing Heart of Karan. We are not facing Aethersphere Harvester. We're not facing Sky Sovereign. So Never is a lot better in Arena than it is in Duels, because there's a lot of cards that we don't have to deal with right now. And maybe Never is actually playable because of that. Like, it's actually could replace Vraska's Contempt, but at the same time, exiling versus destroying. We're in a format where 8 gods are coming, 8 different gods. And I would like to have a Vraska's Contempt which can exile said gods. So as much help as Never is getting by not having to face vehicles, I still think I'd rather run Vraska's Contempt. And that's hard to say, because I do like Never. I like the fact that you can exile, you know, something that they're going for with Graveyard Recursion. I like that I can do those things, but I think Vraska's Contempt still outperforms this card. The instant speed, the exile, the 2 life, like, it all just adds up to where I think Vraska's Contempt is a better card. And I want to like this, I really do. It's a card that I do appreciate. And I think if I draw it, I will main deck it. Simply because, like, I'm not going to have 4 Vraska's Contempts, especially if they wipe the game, you know. And if I drew a Never, that would be fun. But as far as those 2 cards competing with each other, I think Contempt is just a clear favorite. And yeah, that's about all I have to say for this stream. I will be reviewing all of the red cards tomorrow, starting with On-Crop Crasher. That's a fun one to begin with. No question, Never fails at Glorybringer and Hazoret in Phoenix unless you can return this the same turn. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is there's a lot of hasty creatures, and we're going to be talking about a lot of hasty creatures tomorrow, where Vraska's Contempt just is so much better for them. The life gain's actually relevant because they're trying to, you know, reduce your life total to 0 as quickly as possible, and Vraska's Contempt just gives you those slight cushions, you know? Moment of Craving gives you those slight cushions that make it so good. And you just can't do that with Never to return. They're just going to haste their Glorybringer out, they're going to hit you for 4. Your Never's going to hit it on the following turn, but you already took 4 damage. So it's like kind of meh, you know? I agree, Nomad. I think Vraska's Contempt is just a better card, and I'm sad to say that, because I think Never Return does have fun things going for it. You can definitely mess with people's graveyard, which I love messing with people's graveyard. But yeah, final verdict, Vraska's Contempt, man. Anyway, that is going to do it for this stream. Let me just make sure, it is Saturday, right? Yes, it is Saturday. So tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be reviewing all of the red cards from Amonkhet. So I hope you guys catch that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do we have any cards that want high CMC? Nah, nothing like Sorin, that's for sure. Nothing like the Red Gear Hulk, as CGB was streaming with earlier yesterday. Unfortunately, we do not, Sharda. Unless you guys can maybe mention some, I don't think there are any. But yeah, I'm gonna be wrapping up the stream now. Twilight Prophet, yeah, I guess that's the only one. And Twilight Prophet, as we know, like, I did get Twilight Prophet. I have 4 of them. I think it was a mistake. I really do. I guess you can build your Twilight Prophet Never deck, which does sound kind of fun. It does sound like a janky brew, which I can get behind. But maybe 4 treasure maps as well in that brew, so that you can scry for your Prophet. But anyway, I am going to be wrapping up. We'll be talking about On-Crop Crasher, a card that I am excited for. And yeah, hope you enjoyed, and take care. I'll see you next time. Thanks.